Good evening, Fandom Collective 1138. It is I, your old pal Waspinator. I figure not all of you might catch on to exactly who Waspinator is. I'm not the most famous of Transformers, this is true. I'm not like your Bumblebee. Bumblebee, that old asshole. Or your Optimus Primes, or even your Starscreams. Although at one point Starscream did possess my brain. Starscream's ghost from the future. But anyway, that's a long story, and I'll get to that. Anyway, I decided to, provide all of you with a brief history of Waspinator. A lot of this is actually canon, and some of it's my little side adventures that led me here to Fandom Collective 1138. I guess really there's nothing else to do except start at the beginning. Long time ago, there was this species called the quintessons, and it's believed they started off as an organic species, like you humans, but eventually they merged with their technology and became ever more arrogant and prideful with their creations and working on gigantic grand scales. And so they created a Unicron, the planet-devouring, transforming planet god thing that totally went rogue on them, destroyed a whole lot of their stuff, and in response, the Quintessons built another giant planet, but this time not intelligent or transforming. There was a gigantic factory, and it was named Cybertron. And the thing that the factory built was, well, the Transformers, my kind. We managed to drive Unicron off, after thousands upon thousands of Transformers were thrown against it, destroying themselves, and Unicron itself wasn't killed. It just got tired and went away. But during all this, the Transformer called Megatronus rose to power, and he managed to convince the Primes to join on our side, and he started this whole big revolt. And eventually the Quintessons were driven off Cybertron, and all seemed cool and peaceful for a very short amount of time until Megatron tried to take power over the Primes, and they weren't very cool about that. And so the great civil war began between the factions that ultimately would call themselves the Autobots and the Decepticons. I myself am a Predacon. We're a sub-faction of the Decepticons, but I'm not really aligned with anybody anymore. That's a long story. We'll get to it. Anyway, the Civil War lasted for over 1,000,000 years or so, and all the Primes were killed except Optimus. He was the last one, and the Decepticons had pretty much won everything on Cybertron. And Optimus Prime was going to take some of his last Autobot soldiers and go flee somewhere and get some energon and come back and try to retake the planet. But Megatron got wind of this and followed him out on a ship and stormed it and took over. And that's the whole story behind the Ark, which was depicted in the very first season of the original Transformers cartoon. It crashed on Earth, and they were all knocked out and were asleep for several million years. And what they didn't know is back on Cybertron, that another Decepticon rose up in power, and he named himself Megatron, even though he wasn't actually Megatron. And he was the leader of the Predacons, and one of my leaders. And anyway, he came to Earth searching for the Ark, and he was followed by some Autobots who called themselves Maximals. And that was the Beast Wars, and that's probably, if anyone recognizes me, that's probably what they recognize me from, was the Beast Wars show. It ended with the Autobots winning and the Decepticons losing, and the last thing I did was quit. I told Megatron to take this job and shove it, and I went off on my own way, and because of that, I was basically stranded on Earth for a long-ass time. I befriended these the species of primitive hominids, and helped guide them along and help them evolve into you guys, you humans. Yeah, that was me. It was around the time I taught you about building empires and big giant statues and writing and pyramids. Y'all up and revolted on me, and I had to go flee for my life. And I hid out in the jungles of Southeast Asia. And because I was alone, I decided to build some other Transformers, and well, I didn't want to make more Decepticons or Predacons, so I invented the Insecticons. Not just the ones you might know, like Kickback and Bombshell and Shrapnel, the ones that would join Megatron later on after the arc reawoke in the 1980s, but I also made Scorpionok, and actually it was me who captured Arachnia and turned her into Black Arachnia when she had come back to Earth at one point to investigate the doings on. Scorpionok led a revolt, and there's this whole Insecticon crisis, and basically it's a secret beast war that no one really knows about except me. Anyway, so let's see what happened after that. Basically, I just hid out in Southeast Asia for a long time, and then, like I said, in the 1980s, an earthquake in Tennessee activated a volcano that reawakened the Ark, and all the Autobots and Decepticons woke up, and hurrah! The Great Civil War was suddenly back, and Cybertron got teleported next to Earth, and I was tired of being isolated and away from my people, so I took the opportunity to go back to Cybertron and join in the fun as the Autobot Decepticon Civil War was reignited, and Shockwave was taken down off the throne, and there was a bunch of back and forth between Megatron, and eventually Optimus was driven back to like the moons, and there's a good city called Autobot City built on Earth that was helping support the Autobot cause, and yada yada yada. Transformers the movie basically. Optimus dies, Megatron dies and comes back as Galvatron. Unicron shows up and he's destroyed by the Rodimus Prime, and things all seem pretty cool. There was a long quiet time there in the 90s. The Rodimus administration, tried to bring the Autobots and the Decepticons back together, but there's all these political rivalries, and I kept pulling at things. During this time, like in the mid-2000s, I want to say, like around the year 2005, that Waspinator here founded King Waspinator Radio. And for several years, it was just like an entertainment venue. But then Rodimus got deposed by Nemesis Prime. He called himself Optimus, and everyone thought it was Optimus Prime. I thought something was fishy because he looked weird. But anyway, he calmed down tensions between Earth and Cybertron, supposedly. And that was the beginning of the Micheal Bay crisis. All the Transformers who were tricked by Nemesis Prime were taken to Earth and were forced to work in Micheal Bay's movies. And many were destroyed and blown up for his pleasure. And the pleasure of popcorn-eating fat Americans. Thanks for that, guys, by the way. It was pretty cool of you. And yeah, King Waspinator Radio did a big expose about how Micheal Bay was actually really a clone of Dr. Arkham. Dr. Arkham was this mad scientist that worked at Starscream in the 1980s. And Starscream was real into cloning later on. He had made several clones of himself. And one of the clones he made was of Dr. Arkham. And he was named Micheal Bay. And he was raised up to make really shitty, manipulative movies that people would go see because they're designed by marketers and written by marketers and have manipulative pop culture hungry casting, just taking hot names from Ethan Coen brother movies and stuff like that. And he was the perfect pawn to just totally wipe out most of Transformers kind. And thankfully his damnable films are over. Bumblebee, which is coming out soon, at least is not being directed by Micheal Bay, even though it is a movie about Bumblebee. That asshole. Anyway, though, after that, Waspinator kind of didn't really know what to do anymore. King Waspinator Radio got folded in and bought out by Omega Supreme Burritos. And so I decided to come back to Earth and take a job as a host here on Fandom Collective 1138. So, hi, everybody. Anyway, that's what's up with me. Hope you have a good evening, or morning, or afternoon, whatever time of day it is when you see this. And be sure to hit the like and subscribe for more fantastic, great content every day, just like it is. Hot Rod, are you gonna turn off the camera? Any